We just got a new exciting trailer for Marvel Tōkon, and there are so many things we need to talk about that I've decided to compile all the information and discuss everything that you need to know about the game all the way until it gets released on August of this year. If you want to check out the breakdown of the trailer and all the information, just watch the video all the way until the end. If not, you can check the timestamps and jump to the parts in which we talk about future events and possible announcements that might happen in the upcoming months. And now, let's get into it. Oh, and also like and subscribe if you want to support the channel. I would appreciate it a lot, especially if you want to see more content from Marvel Tōkon. Okay, so let's quickly talk about the trailer, the characters, and how they connect to the leaks that we have gotten for Marvel Tōkon over the last few months. The first thing is that the addition of Hulk and Shuri as Black Panther makes a ton of sense when you think about it, right? Hulk is your staple big body character for the Marvel IP that is just perfect for any fighting game that you're working on, and something that I catch when I watch the trailer again, because when we were watching the event live from where I am, it was like 3 a.m. in the morning, so I barely kind of like understood what was going on, to be honest. But if you check the trailer, you know, kind of like with detail, in the case of Hulk, he's actually very similar to C. Broly from Dragon Ball FighterZ. So there is kind of like a constant, you know, connection between Tōkon and FighterZ when it comes to the moveset of some characters, which I think is really cool, taking into account that Arxis, of course, was the team behind DBFC, which is one of the most successful tag fighting games in the last few years. And Hulk just looks great, you know, the armor with the bones looks amazing, it's a great reference for the character, the gameplay seems very fitting with what Hulk is as a character, so is perfect. And then the case of Shuri as Black Panther is a little bit more controversial, because I know that a lot of people want T'Challa and not Shuri. But again, it makes a lot of sense because Shuri is going to be Black Panther in the upcoming Avengers movies, right? She has also been Black Panther in the comics for a long time. It's not something new at all. And also, when you kind of connect it with the gameplay, the character looks insanely cool. If you're fair with the character and don't just judge it right away because it is not T'Challa, the gameplay and the visual design of Black Panther as Shuri in this game looks astonishing. Like, it's one of the best looking characters in the game, and also one of the most complete movesets. Like, the character has range attacks with the spear and also with kunais, right? Kind of like a ninja style character. She also has a command dash and like mix-up style stuff. She's kind of like a mid-range character as well. Then she's probably going to have a little mix-up. Is arguably one of the most complete characters in the game, which makes a ton of sense for Black Panther as an archetype, well-rounded, kind of like rushdown character. So yeah, I just think that Shuri as Black Panther is simply really cool. Even if you don't want Shuri because you want T'Challa, if you're fair with the trailer and how the character looks and it seems to play, it is a really cool looking character. Now, when it comes to connecting the trailer with leaks from a while ago for Tōkon, it actually kind of fits, because some time ago we got a leak from a retail store that said that we were gonna get Magneto and Scarlet Witch on the game, but it also has stages, and one of the stages was a Wakanda stage. So it is related to the leak in some way or form. I'm not saying that it is completely gonna be real, you know, it's 100% gonna be the perfect leak, but there is a fit. And it makes a ton of sense to add Black Panther into a Marvel fighting game on an Avengers team, even if it is Shuri. And at the same time, if we have Black Panther, of course, we are gonna get a Wakanda stage, because it's one of the most cool locations that you can add into the game. So if this kind of like connects with the leak so well, and it ends up being true, it also makes sense to think that Magneto and Scarlet Witch will make it into the game in the future. Of course, take that with a grain of salt. There's no confirmation whatsoever, but it's kind of like the puzzle is starting to build up and become a little bit more clear. The other thing that we need to talk about that is super interesting about the trailer is that there are kind of hints for future reveals. You know, by the end of the video, there's this kind of like green screen, and if you pause it, Spider-Man's face has a ton of like scratches on it, and then on the bottom left corner, it says 361. And a lot of people have been saying that this is the first number in the comics in which Carnage appears as a character. So if you connect that with the idea that maybe Doom's team is gonna be full of villains, then maybe that team is just going to be one villain that fights against the other teams. And for example, Doctor Doom could be the villain of the Avengers, right? Then you have Carnage as the villain of the Spider-Man team, and then the other two would be the ones that fight with the case of the X-Men and Ghost Rider's team, and that could be Magneto and somebody else. And in that context, I think that it could be one of the most exciting teams that you can add into the game, and is clearly kind of like a hint of the future trailers for the game. I still believe that it could be another Spider-Man villain, even if it has the 361 on the bottom left. Maybe it could be the Red Goblin, for example, and you have a mix there between like Carnage and the Green Goblin in terms of, you know, the thematic villain for the Spider-Man team. There's a lot that could happen still, but if we get one Spider-Man villain on Doctor Doom team, I think that is great. It's a great pick for the game, and a lot of the best kind of like villains on Marvel Universe are from Spider-Man. So I think it's a great pick, whoever it is, and if it is Carnage, it's amazing because it is a way to have a symbiote on the game that has also never been on a fighting game. So 10-10 pick for me. If you ask me, we will see if it becomes true or not. And now let's actually move into talking about future events in which we could get new reveals or trailers for Marvel Tōkon. And I have like 4 or 5 dates in mind in which we could for sure get something. The first one, and probably the less likely one, is going to be Combo Breaker by the end of this month. That's a big, fighting game tournament that is going to have some reveals for sure because it's one of the biggest in the entire year. And at the same time, I think that there is a decent chance, relatively small but decent, that we might get a trailer there for Tōkon, but not for a new team, for a beta, so that people can actually try the game out with the new changes, because they have been actively trying to promote the fact that the game has changed. They're making exhibitions right at EVO Japan. Also, they have a booth so people can try the game out, and they have said on interviews publicly that they want for people to try the game. So I think that we are gonna get a beta sooner than later, and it might be a Combo Breaker, but it is obviously the less likely event because it's not a big gaming event. It's a much more niche fighting game, hardcore fan base kind of like stuff. So I wanted to mention it, but it is the less likely one for sure. Then another one that I would say is much more likely that we get a reveal is the next Sony State of Play. A couple of weeks ago, there was a quote-unquote leak that there is going to be a Sony State of Play during May, but it has not gotten confirmed at all. So take it with a big grain of salt, but there's probably gonna be a Sony State of Play mid-year anyway. It has been like that for years. Now, it could be in June and not in May, but it's gonna happen 100%. Like, it's just kind of like a staple for Sony in the industry by this point, right? And Marvel Tōkon has been on every single Sony State of Play since the game got announced. And I think that if we're gonna get one of those, Tōkon is gonna be there again. It could be a new team, it could be a story mode trailer and game mode stuff, kind of like more feature-rich type of trailer. So there's a lot of things that could happen in that context, and I think that the chance of getting a Marvel Tōkon trailer within the context of Sony and their marketing is just very big because it's their game. They are behind it with, ArcSys, of course, so it just makes a ton of sense. And I don't believe that Tōkon is gonna stop receiving marketing from Sony at any point, at least until it gets fully released on August. So if we get a Sony State of Play during May or June, you can kind of like count the Marvel Tōkon getting something there almost 100%. Then another event that you can add into your calendar when it comes to possible Marvel Tōkon announcements is going to be Summer's Games Fest in June. It is arguably the biggest gaming event of the year in the middle part, of the calendar. And there's almost nothing that competes with it at this point. It's kind of like the replacement of E3, if you think about it functionally. And I think that Tōkon wants to appeal to a big audience that is not only related to fighting games, and there are going to be so many kind of like casual gaming eyes on Summer's Games Fest because that's how the event works, right? So if you want your game to be big and be as successful as it can be financially speaking and trying to appeal to a big audience, you have to show something for Tōkon at Summer's Games Fest. So I would also kind of like almost assume that we're gonna get something there. It could be one of the teams, it could be a story mode / game mode trailer like I said before, or whatever, right? But I think that not getting something for Tōkon at that event would be naive from ArcSys and Sony, and they know how to do marketing really well. They've been doing a decent campaign since the game has gotten a better pace when it comes to trailers and events. So I think that you can almost kind of assume that Marvel Tōkon will have something at Summer's Games Fest, like 100%. And then the last piece of the puzzle when it comes to announcements and events that I would think about is going to be EVO Vegas by the end of June. It is kind of close to Summer's Games Fest. It is within the same month, or even with the Sony State of Play if we ever get that. But I think there's still a chance for EVO Vegas to get something because EVO Japan got a trailer, which makes a ton of sense because it is their country, it is an Arc System work scheme, right? It's a local announcement if you think about it that way in terms of marketing and how they treat the game. But at the same time, EVO Vegas is even bigger than EVO Japan when it comes to eyes on the event. It is arguably a little less niche. So I just think that now with the EVO Japan reveal, the chances of an EVO Vegas reveal are a bit higher. I don't think that they are as big as the case of a Sony State of Play or Summer's Games Fest. Don't get me wrong, like those are the two big heavy hitters in which you are for sure gonna get something. But now I would say there is some bigger chance for EVO Vegas to have kind of like a reveal for Tōkon until the game gets released 1 month later. If you have more informations or events that maybe I'm forgetting about, put them in the comments, especially if it is in July, which is kind of like the month that I'm putting on the side that I can't think of any big events, but those would be all kind of like the dates that I would take into account for possible reveals for Tōkon. Now let's talk about the two teams that we have left, which are Dr. Doom team and also the Ghost Rider team. By this point, I think that we can almost assume that Doom's team is just gonna be villains, especially with the hint by the end of the Shuri and Hulk trailer for Carnage, or kind of like a Spider-Man villain, right? Now, who is it gonna be? I don't know. By this point, it feels like ArcSys, like I've said before, is just doing whatever they want. They're putting the characters in the game that they feel make sense and they think are cool. It is very obvious, especially with the pick of, for example, Penny on the Spider-Man team, arguably also with the pick of Shuri in the Avengers team. They're doing what they think is right. So I think that the idea, for example, getting something like the Cabal in Doom's team is just not going to be the case. It's going to be a more mixed, villains team. We can get a Spider-Man villain, like I said, right? We can also get a villain for Ghost Rider that makes sense, another villain for the X-Men that could be Magneto. I think that there's a decent chance that the leak is going to get real also, and Magneto is going to be on Doom's team, and Scarlet Witch is going to be with Ghost Rider, and then the other two for Ghost Rider could be Blade, for example, and Daredevil, or it could be Blade and Doctor Strange. There's a lot of picks that you can still add into the game, and arguably these two teams that are left are some of the most exciting characters, actually, if they pick them right. So there's still a lot to be, excited for when it comes to this game, and hopefully in future events we get cool trailers and a ton of great picks for the two teams that are left. But I do believe that they're just going to do whatever they want, and it's going to be harder and harder to predict it, except for the hints by the end of the trailer with Carnage and all of that stuff. And then the final thing that I wanted to talk about is actually about the gameplay. With the exhibition that we got between Goichi and Sonic Fox, when you look at them, they're just having a ton of fun, man. And that's always the biggest goal when it comes to this game, that the games are fun to play. And if pro players of that caliber are just having such a blast discovering the overall pace of the game, what to do on it, the characters, I think that we have a really good situation for the overall gameplay experience of Tōkon when the game comes out. I think that it's going to be much more kind of like free form than what it was before all the changes, but at the same time, it's going to keep that identity in which it is a tag game, but you can also enjoy it as a 1v1 with assists. And I personally think that following that gameplay design philosophy is cool because it's really unique. It's going to give Tōkon a unique gameplay experience when you compare it to other tag games, because you're going to be able to still play it like a real 4v4 tag game, especially after all the gameplay changes in which there's more incentive to actually tag and play it like a tag game. But at the same time, if you don't want to do that, if you want to play your favorite character and use the other ones as your assists and that's it, there is incentive to do that too. And I believe that if they make something unique with the gameplay, it is for the better future of the game when it comes to keeping it, fresh, keeping it different. And I think that it's going to be a really successful game. I think that by this point, there is so many hints that the game is going to do well that I'm pretty excited about it. It's one of my most expected games, and I think that they're doing most things right. The gameplay, the reveals, the choose of the characters right, the gameplay changes, this kind of like balance between playing tag but also playing 1v1 with assists. It feels like they're taking the right choices and decisions. We will see what happens when the game actually comes out, but until now, my hopes are up. And for you, I hope that it is the same case. Thank you for watching the video all the way until here. If you want to support the channel, like and subscribe, I would appreciate it a ton, especially if you want to see more content from Marvel Tōkon. And see you on the next one. Take care.